Okay, welcome back. Our first question that we're going to delve into comes from the book discussion guide, which the author, Michele Richardson, put together and is available on her website. So I will make that link available to you in the comments section so you know the website for the companion guide. It is called the Bookwoman Companion Guide. Let's see if I have the right. Yes, Bookwoman Companion Guide there. And so we'll be talking about that as well, and some other fun things from the guide that are very interesting. So the next question that is posed is: imagine you were making a community scrapbook like the ones Cussy distributes to the people of Troublesome. What would you include? Do you think these materials were helpful to Cussy's library patrons? So, we know Cussy liked making these scrapbooks. She would insert little snippets from either a newspaper or a local community news outlet and give them to people based on their interest. So I can't remember right now, but specifics related to whatever it was they were interested in. So it was a very, I hearken it to what we have at the Plymouth Public Library in terms of a community bulletin board and a resource table, maybe. So many of you know we have several bulletin boards throughout the library, and we post things that people bring in, and these are generally free events or community type events, and they are things that people can be made aware of to educate or inform. So, anything from, in terms of life, that things that Cussy provided. It could even be recipes. And I imagine that, it would be very helpful to have, especially people who can't get to the major town that often because of where they live. And so the question being, what would I include if in interestingly enough, in our times now of isolation during this pandemic, if we were doing pack horse library outreach in rural areas, what would I bring? And of course, we have to put ourselves back there because now we have email, but even today, so many remote parts of our country do not have internet or do not even have high-speed internet. So, think about 15, 20 years ago when the internet was brand new and not everybody had it. Maybe 20, 25 years ago. I'm thinking late 90s. So, what would we provide in a scrapbook? Would it be information on what's going on in Plymouth? Would it be something? And of course, we hopefully wouldn't be during a pandemic, but we would want to provide, information about employment, maybe some recipes, sporting events, things that people might want to learn on their own. So I think that's a really fascinating concept, bringing the community bulletin board to life through these scrapbooks. And no wonder scrapbooking is still something that people love to do. So the next question is: when Cussy receives the cure for her blueness from Doc, she realizes there's a price to pay for her white skin, and the side effects soon become too much to handle. If you were in her shoes, Would you sacrifice your health for a chance at normalcy, quote unquote? If there weren't any side effects, do you think Cussie would have continued to take the medication? And would you? Would I? Wow. So, yes, when Doc put together through research what the solution was to this condition, and the injections began. Was I'm sorry, I'm just remembering injection or pill. I'm sorry. Um, and so when the treatment began, um, the side effects were pretty staggering for Cussie, and the first time was very daunting. It did not look very good. So, and then she went ahead and continued. But, what would be the price to pay for being normal? And, would she have continued? What were the societal trade-offs at that time for all of a sudden being perceived as white, as normal, etc., and and how that plays out. So, another question to ponder. And the next question really has to do with that, because the next question is, how do you think Cussie feels when she is ostracized at the Independence Day celebration, despite her change of skin color? And can you relate to her feelings of isolation? Do you think there are still these kinds of racial prejudices prevalent today? So what happened was she had taken the treatment and her skin became white, lost the blue pigmentation temporarily, and she decided to go to the celebration. And everybody was shocked and could not fathom, almost as if, even though they were shunning her as a blue, they didn't want to have her be white. They just wanted her to be in her place, so to speak. And the reaction was quite not what she expected. And so having this kind of isolation thrust upon her, even when she appears to be looking normal, I'm just trying to think of any experiences that can come close to relating to that. I think about when we try to fit into something, and whether it's a article of clothing or a car or whatever it is, to fit into the in crowd, and we show up and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's so and so again, and they're trying to fit in, but the compelling overall response to that is still, you're just not good enough, and there's nothing you can do that would make you good enough to be part of our group. So there still is that kind of experience. So if you want to make some comments and some thoughts about what that brings up in the comments down below in the video, and then we can move on to the next one. So much here, so much to talk about. All right, the final question for today, and I do see us coming back to do another video presentation a week from today, a week from April, a week from May 6th, which is the 13th. So the final question is, Cussie has to deal with the loss of many loved ones in a very short amount of time. How do you think she handles her grief? And which loss was the most difficult for you to read. Boy, oh boy, I tell you, I really, when those, and I won't reveal too much right now in case you've not read up to this point, but um, they came fast. And I felt like, whoa, she just got over this other loss, and now there's another loss. And I really think this is a maybe a mechanism or a literary device, but it's almost like she had to get really, really down to the hitting the bottom in terms of the loss and letting go and being able to move on, so to speak, in some ways. And somehow we know through adversity can come triumph, can come new hope, new revelations, new ways of looking at things. So, yes, the losses were great and hard to deal with, hard to bear. And oftentimes I felt that she was dealing with a lot on her own and not having, not having much around in terms of dealing with. That she is a strong, strong woman, and I think her passion for her job, her passion for what she does, in a way got her through. And for knowing that she was doing, that was her connection. Her job was her social connection in many respects. Not always a good thing to do when I think about it. We need outlets outside of our work. We don't want our work to consume us. We don't want our work to be everything for us. And so, but for Cussie, living in such isolation, her patrons were, in some respects, her family. So, yes, there there are some glimmers of hope on the horizon, and so take a moment to think about how she handled the grief and which loss was the hardest for you to read. All right, now I wanted to talk about some of the some of the patrons that we meet along the way in Cussie's route. And we'll do that in a few minutes. We'll take a little break here, and we'll come back and talk about some of the characters.